Hello and welcome to HT's weekly talk show, The Interview, and our special segment, Coffee on Sunday. When Naresh Gujral gave a bundle of currency notes to his mother, she panicked and told his dad to find out what their son was actually doing. His claim to fame? His company dressed up Lady Diana. Politics was not Gujral's first vocation. Making clothes was. Today, he is a politician, but the least known in a family of eminent people. Father, Inder Kumar Gujral, a former Prime Minister. Uncle, Satish Gujral, a well-known artist. Grandfather, who was a member of the Constituent Assembly of Pakistan. Let us meet Naresh Gujral, a chartered accountant turned designer turned politician, in this edition of HD's weekly talk show, The Interview, in our special segment, Coffee on Sunday. Welcome to the show, Mr. Naresh Gujral, and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Let me begin from the beginning. You started a clothing company because, to quote you, you had nothing better to do. Would you say the same for politics?
No, that is not true. Actually, that was said in jest. I always enjoyed fashion. I wanted to make it on my own. I felt that there was a gap in that industry at that time. And that's how I got into the clothing business, which incidentally did very well for us. Politics, I entered because I felt again, this is the time, if you recall, when Bofors was at its height. And we were all very angry at what was happening in the country. And I do remember I persuaded my father to fight the election in '89 from Jalandhar. And he won handsomely. Since one member of the family was enough, I stayed in business. And after my father retired in '98, I decided to join politics. But it took a while. Finally, I took the first step in 2004 when I fought the Jalandhar Lok Sabha election. Thereafter, I got into the Raj Sabha in 2007. I had 3 consecutive terms. And I retired last year.
You lost the election which you contested. And to quote you, you said, I am not for electoral politics. And second, while on your father, is it true that you promised him that you will keep away from politics till he is in it?
Absolutely. We decided that there is not going to be any automatic succession. I have to do it on my own. And when I said that electoral politics is not for me, unfortunately, the way electoral politics in this country is shaping up, you have to give these things, whether it's a very shameful thing to admit, but whether it's alcohol, whether it is money, whether it is other inducements, it's a strange thing. A voter is saying today, give me alcohol, give me money, but you stay honest. So it's a dichotomy in that sense.
What about your promise to your father that you would stay away? Why?
Because we felt that one person from the family in politics was enough, number one. Number two, it would then, my father was Prime Minister, and if I had entered politics then, it would have seemed like he was misusing his position to induct me into politics. And we didn't want to convey that impression at all. All my life, whatever I did it on my own strength, and that's the way I wanted it to be.
You knew very little about clothes when you got into the clothing business, and probably lesser about politics when you entered. And yet, you were successful in both. How did that happen? What was the magic trick?
Well, I'll tell you, as far as my clothing business was concerned, I always, I was greatly influenced by my uncle Satish Gujral. I always had an eye for art. I always had an eye for color. And I was very fond of fashion myself. I used to design clothes for myself before I entered that business. So it was, in a way, a natural fit. And there was a void in the sense that India at that time was not doing printed garments. And I thought that that's where we could specialize. So we took, my company, Span India, we specialized in prints, and to that we added the traditional Indian embroideries. So that mix did very well in Europe, and we were very successful. So in that sense, it's not that I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know the craft of it. But the art side of it, I enjoyed, and I think I had an eye for it, and that's what paid off.
Politics?
Politics, I'd watched politics since early 60s. My father became a member of parliament in 64. We were a very closely knit family. So one used to watch this. That was a talk on the dinner table. All these leaders would come and go, including Mrs. Indira Gandhi from the house. So in that sense, I had a feel for it.
Your mother wrote poetry, and good poetry. Did you ever take to verse?
No, I did not take to poetry. As I said, my interest was more in music. My interest was more in art.
Your interest is more in collecting carpets.
Well, not just carpets. I started collecting carpets. I started collecting antiques. I started collecting art way back in early 80s, as soon as I made some money. That was a passion, and that remains constant.
Coming to making money, from a chartered accountant who had one room where the AC didn't work, the phone never rang, and you had a dummy phone just for effect so that people thought there's business, to being one of the richest politicians. Take me through your story of making millions.
As I said, I made my first couple of lakhs as a chartered accountant, as a practicing chartered accountant. Once I had that, despite warnings from my parents, despite the fact that my father was very unhappy that I was giving up a very lucrative practice, I got into the garment business, started from a garage where we had 3 machines, and I made some samples, took them to Helsinki. That's where I got my first order. And it was a long story thereafter. But as I said, I could see where the void was. I could see where the gap was. And we filled that void. At that time, India's fashion was in huge demand, post-Beatles. So we had a ready market. We could command any prices that we gave. So the margins were absolutely massive. It was
a win-win situation.
It was a win-win situation all the way.
Tell me about the dummy phone story, which you put for effect.
Well, when I started as a chartered accountant, my father's cousin had a house on Barakhamba Road, and he gave me one room in his annex. In those days, it was almost impossible to get a phone connection. Despite the fact that my father was a minister, now you could not say that I have an office. There were no cell phones in those days, but I have no phone. That would look very funny. So I took a dummy phone from my father's house and placed it there just for effect, so that people would think that this is a serious office and not just a fly-by-night operation. As I said, fortunately, my practice picked up. I was able to save some money, and then there was no looking back.
And while on money, when the first time you gave a bundle of currency notes to your mother, she got very suspicious and told your father, find out what he's doing.
My parents had just come back from Moscow. My father was ambassador there. When they came back, by then my business had really taken off. So I was trying to convince my mother that they should stay in their house that they'd built in Maharani Bagh, and that they could have the same lifestyle that they had as an ambassador in Moscow. But she always thought that I was still struggling in my business. That is when I gave her a bundle of notes, and I said, here you are. If you don't believe me, you buy what you like. And she got very suspicious and she told my father that he should check out as to what I was doing. Because, don't forget, in those days, like later on, people made money in infotech, or now the startups. Garments were the early startups of those days. And there was, as I said, loads of money in it. Sometimes we sold something for 100 rupees and made a profit of 105, because the government of India used to give us so much incentives. So money was just showering, it was like rain. And she got very suspicious, so she asked my father to check out as to where the money was coming from.
So was it that you made your millions in the garment business, or was it also what you inherited from your family, being now among the richest politicians in the country?
Well, I wouldn't say I was amongst the richest politicians of the family. I inherited, or the two brothers inherited, a house in Marani Bagh, which was my father's property. That's all I inherited from him, and some art. Other than that, whatever I have, I made through hard work. And I would say that since I was a chartered accountant, I could read balance sheets. So I invested in companies where my money has grown hundreds of times. So that has been the foundation of our success in terms of investments. I also invested in property in and around Delhi when everything was going for a song. I would today say that we are very well-to-do, but I wouldn't call myself as amongst the richest politicians in the country.
Okay, that's being modest. One of your claim to fame, my company dressed up Lady Diana. Take me through the Scottish checks story.
In those days, Lady Diana was a craze, as you remember. And now King Charles, the Prince Charles and Lady Diana were supposed to visit Australia. We had designed a dress which we had sold to a company called Monsoon in London. Lady Diana picked up that dress from Monsoon, and she was seen wearing that dress in Australia. And somebody sent me a few photographs, and that is how it became a big story in India.
And she also broke the golden rule of the royals, the British royals, wearing, when they're traveling abroad, not to wear anything except what is done in UK.
To be fair, it looked like a Scottish check. So she thought she would get away with it. She never thought that it will come back to us and we will publicize it.
Who are the other celebrities your company has dressed up, if I may use the term?
Well, I wouldn't say we have dressed up, but yes, we have sold dresses to France since the 70s, to England, to other European countries. And many film stars have picked up our dresses from shops.
Coming to politics, what has politics given you and what has it taken away from you?
What it has taught me is that, most important, people must trust you, people must respect you, and they will only respect you if they trust you, number one. Number two, whatever you believe in, you must say it without any fear. Yes, sometimes you have to pay a price, but say it ruthlessly and keep on repeating whatever you believe in.
What has it taken away from you? Except, of course, the fancy shoes, the branded ties and trendy clothes.
No, what it's taken away is in what we see these days, or what's going on now. It is sickening, very frankly. It is nauseating. The kind of public discourse, the way we have reduced Parliament to a fish market. It's only tu-tu meh-meh, getting into the well, shouting at each other. It's us versus them now. If you are against the government, the Treasury MPs would be reluctant to even talk to you. So there is a strange divide. That was not so for the first, I would say, 65 years of our independence.
Looking at this and seeing how things are unfolded, of course, your term is ended, you're out of Parliament. Would you say it's time for you to quit politics?
I think everybody has to take that call, that where is it time for you to leave? And frankly, the last 1 year of my tenure, I was in Parliament for 15 years. I enjoyed it very much for 14 years. But the last 1 year, I was very disillusioned. I had friends, and I continue to have friends across party lines. But there is fear now. That fear was not there earlier. And that is very dangerous for democracy.
So, do I take it that it's time for you to get back to your branded ties and fancy shoes?
No, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. That was one phase of my life. I am, in fact, now more involved with social work. I'm involved with some think tanks. I continue to acquire art. I devote more time to concerts. So, there are things to do.
Coming to your father, how much of his legacy have you been able to carry forward, and where and which are the areas where you have failed or feel that there are gaps?
I do remember when I entered politics or when I entered parliament, that comparison was always made, and it used to scare me. I remember my first few speeches. My father was a very able parliamentarian, and people would say that you're going to be measured. Of course, I could never come up to his level, but I think I did a reasonably okay job. But that is for others to judge, not for me to comment.
But in your own assessment, what do you think are the gaps, and where you think he would have liked it this way and I've not been able to match up, if there are any?
My father came to Parliament in 1964, and within 3 years he was a minister, and then he remained a minister for a long time. I came to Parliament 2007 when Dr. Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister. Congress remained there till 2014. So obviously I was in the opposition. As an opposition member, at best you ask difficult questions and you make fiery speeches, which I think I did. When our side came to power, we were part of NDA, I never got a chance to become a minister. And very frankly, I also got disillusioned with certain policies of the BJP. Jairam Ramesh used to joke that you are the in-house critic of NDA. And the anti-minority policies of the BJP, I'm against that, and I was always against that, and I would speak out.
So in politics, as you said, you never, in one sense, become center stage vis-a-vis being a minister. In the family, you are among the lesser knowns in a family of eminent people. Father, Prime Minister I.K. Gujral, uncle, Satish Gujral, eminent painter, and grandfather, a member of the Constituent Assembly in Pakistan. What does all this mean and what does it do to you?
My father would always say, money comes and goes. Respect, once it goes, will never come back. So that has been our legacy. And I've tried to live up to that. I was always very aware of this, that I must live up to my family's reputation.
While on politics, you were at one point Mr. Narendra Modi's points person for forging alliances in 2013, before he became Prime Minister. What is the current status of your relationship? And please don't say he's the Prime Minister of the country and I'm a former parliamentarian.
No, very frankly, we have not met each other for a long time. I don't think they took very kindly to my criticism publicly and privately in meetings of NDA. So I'd have no relationship now with them. My relationship was with Arun Jaitley. And I think as long as he was there was moderation in BJP. As long as he was there, he would take care of alliances. As long as he was there, he would respect those who stood for certain values. His passing away that way has hurt the BJP and the NDA a lot.
About the Congress, you had once said, and I quote, "It is an organization run by 2 directors. The rest are just followers. They laugh on cue, they clap on cue, and they even cry on cue." Do you still hold that view?
But that is true even today. Unfortunately, it is not just the Congress party. Mr. Modi is right about one thing. Most regional parties have become family parties. And in order to survive, the members of that particular political party have to do what their leaders do. And while Congress may have elected a so-called independent president, the fact is that they're all gulams. I do hope that the culture will change because it is a national party. It must remain the strong if India's democracy has to thrive.
Talking purely objectively, isn't that true also of the Shiromani Akali Dal party to which you belong?
All political parties, as I said, all regional parties, unfortunately, have become family parties. From DMK in the south to the Abdullahs in the north, every party, that way Mr. Modi is right. These are family-controlled parties.
So do I take it that in the Shiromani Akali Dal, while there are two directors, the followers do not laugh on cue and do not cry on cue?
Absolutely true. And I am known in the party. They say that Naresh Gujral does not speak English, he speaks American. I say it the way it is, whether they like it or not. And despite the fact that I've been outspoken for 15 years, I'm still given the room. There is a far more tolerance in our party than the other parties, including the Congress.
You were given a room, you have been, you have your space, but yet you were not given your due.
Ke sara sara.
You have often quoted Bernard Shaw, "The wisest man is my tailor. He measured me every time afresh." Explain this to me, not in the context of what Shaw said, but in the context of your mindset.
You see, what happens is, for example, I may have known Arun Jaitley when he was just a student leader or when he entered Mr. Vajpayee's cabinet. But the man was growing. Look at the way he grew. Look at the way, it's like you are educating yourself all the time. You're introspecting all the time. And most people, whether in politics or outside politics, in any field, if they continue to introspect, they continue to grow. Never judge a person by what they were in the past. People may regress or they may progress. You must continue to rejudge them all the time.
Art, paintings, fine carpets are your prized possessions.
No, not prized possession, my interest.
Okay, your interests. What are the other things which people dream of and you go actually out and buy?
It's very strange, but you wouldn't believe it. I have bought most of my wife's jewelry. So antique jewelry I buy for her. I have a collection of shawls, both men's and ladies, which I continue to buy. I know that eventually a lot of my collection will go to museums. I will just donate because the children are not going to wear those things. But yes, it interests me a lot.
Where do you see yourself today? You're out of parliament, a kind of a nowhere man, if I may use the term, in your own party, and no longer the points person for Mr. Modi. What is the road ahead for you?
Look, as I said, I'm taking more interest in social work. I remain in the party. They continue to seek my counsel whenever required. It's not that I've retired that way. I don't want to fight an election myself, but I will continue to serve my party. They've been very good to me.
What kind of a picture nationally do you see in 2024?
Last time they won all 10 out of 10 in Haryana. It is an impossible task today. They won 7 out of 7 in Delhi. I don't see that happening. They won all the seats in Rajasthan. I don't see that happening today. When you count all these, even UP, today it's a fact that UP is on a roll. UP has done quite well economically. But the way the minorities have been treated there, whether it's Muslims or Sikhs, there is also resentment. So I don't see them getting the kind of numbers that they got in the last election.
So what you're saying is the BJP will come back with reduced numbers.
I'm not saying come back. I'm saying the BJP would be the largest single party. Whether they have will have crossed 272, the magic number, I am doubtful.
Many would see this as wishful thinking.
Possible. Everybody looks at it differently. Whatever I'm saying is also subjective. But when I look at things objectively, unfortunately or fortunately, this is how the national situation is. You see, don't forget, the youth is restive. New jobs have not been created. When we talk of FDI coming into India, or when we talk of investments, yes, it is happening. But what kind of jobs? We have growth, yes, but we have jobless growth. So youth is getting frustrated. So that is what makes me think that they will have a difficult time. But yes, they would certainly be the number one party in the country.
Mr. Naresh Gujral, thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank
and
you.
thank you for taking all the
Thank you
questions.
very much.